Good evening, everybody. Yesterday, we completed the first subtopic of agriculture. Very first question is, what is the meaning of Green Revolution? Right? Because if we analyze the word, you get the true meaning of this word, and then it will be easy to understand what all we should study under Green Revolution. Right? Now, first focus on the word green. Right? Now, when we say green today, generally the word green is used for environment. At various places we are using the term green, like green technology, right? So whenever today we use the term green, it means we are talking about something related with environment, ecology. But this word green was used during 1960s, and at that time there was no issue of environment. In fact, the first Earth Summit that was about environment, the first Earth Summit was organized only in 1972. It means before that, environment was a non-issue. So it means this green is not about environment. It is about agriculture. Right? Number two, revolution. Revolution, what generally we use for some big change. Right? So it means green revolution word, when we say, we are talking about some big change in agriculture. Now, what is this big change? You can say that it is about increase in production in agriculture. Right? That may be one answer. There is no problem. But when we say increase in production, the production in agriculture can be increased by two ways. One, by increasing the area, and another by increasing the productivity. So, what is green revolution? Increasing area or increasing productivity? Obviously increasing productivity, because area in any country cannot be increased. It is quite possible that we increase the area of one crop at the cost of another crop, but overall agricultural land cannot be increased. And yesterday only I told you that over 5-year period, 10-11 to 15-16, the agricultural land in India decreased by 1.5%. That is because of other uses of agricultural land. So in fact, agricultural land is shrinking. It is not increasing. It means that when we talk about increase in agricultural production, even if when you are writing answers, your focus should be on this word, increase in productivity. So we can revise our answer and say that increase in production through increase in productivity, that will be perfect, right? So now you can write what is green revolution. So it is about increasing production in agriculture, increasing production in agriculture through increase in productivity. Through increase in productivity. Right? That is. But now the question is, how we are going to do this? Right? Now the experts used various terms for this purpose. Now the very popular term about green revolution is that it is input oriented revolution. So green revolution is input oriented revolution. Now this gives lot of insight into the whole issue. How we did it? So the answer is, it is through introducing new inputs. And what are these new inputs? Generally we talk about 4 new inputs. What are these? Number 1, HYV seeds. Number 2, chemical fertilizers. Number 3, pesticides. And number 4, irrigation. Right? So there are 4 vital inputs in green revolution: HYV seeds, chemical fertilizers, pesticides, and irrigation. And when I say irrigation, I mean assured irrigation, not monsoon. Right? Assured irrigation. It means that when we discuss green revolution is nothing but introduction of new inputs. So when we talk about the status of green revolution in India, we have to basically focus to what extent these inputs were adopted by the farmers. In what areas it is more successful, in what area it is less successful. All the answers we get when we analyze the use of the inputs. That is why this term is very important, that green revolution is input oriented revolution. Now some experts, they also talk about technological revolution. The green revolution is also technological revolution. Now generally when we think about technology, what comes into our mind is machines, right? But in agriculture, always remember that when we talk about technological changes, technological revolution, actually here technology is about new inputs. And for machines, we use the term mechanization. So if the question is mechanization of agriculture, it means it is about use of new machines, tractors, harvesters, threshers, pumping sets. This is mechanization, right? But when we say technological revolution, use of technology, technological changes, then for all this, you have to interpret it as green revolution. So technological revolution, new technology, input-oriented revolution, these are the alternative words that we use to explain green revolution, right? So you got it? Now these are the very vital explanations to understand how to interpret the word green revolution. Obviously, as this is about the 4 inputs, any discussion on green revolution means discussion on the 4 inputs, and we will take them one by one, right? So the first I am going to talk about the first input, that is HYV seeds, or high yielding varieties of seeds. HYV seeds. You see, what is the role of seed in increasing agricultural production or productivity? So our experience says that just by introducing new seeds or HYV seeds, the productivity can be increased by 20 to 25%. That is the role of the HYV seeds. 20 to 25% productivity increase is possible just by introducing HYV seeds. But if we go into the experience or the coverage, we can't say that even today. The coverage of HYV seed is 100%. In many areas, still the farmers are using the old conventional seeds. What is the basic reason of this lack of coverage? Like in case of wheat, that is considered to be the most successful crop, coverage wise and also productivity wise. Even in this, the coverage is not 100%, it is just over 90%. Now, the problem in seed expansion is there are many factors, but the very important factor is irrigation. Because you know that out of the 4 inputs that I told, seeds, fertilizers, and pesticides, they can be supplied to any part of the country. But what about irrigation? And in India, only 50% of agricultural land is irrigated. Rest is dependent on monsoon. And when we are talking about wheat, wheat is a rabi crop. That is a dry season, no rainfall, right? Except in Tamil Nadu. In geography, you read about Tamil Nadu, winter rains, right? But what is this wheat growing area of India? It is the northern plains. Punjab, Haryana, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar. These are the major wheat growing areas. Obviously, state-wise when we study, there is a perfect correlation. Correlation, you understand? Linkage. There is a perfect correlation between the expansion of irrigation and the coverage of HYV seed. And it shows that if we want to include the areas which are left out, the only possibility is, or only condition is, irrigation. And it is not difficult to understand, because you know, if you think like an investor, if we want to invest money, what is the first thing that comes into our mind? What is the risk associated with this investment? And if it is highly risky, we avoid, and every expert will suggest that the risk factor is very high, we should not go into that. Now think about the farmers. The farmers investing in HYV seeds, chemical fertilizers and pesticides, all the inputs are costly, and then what is the security of that investment? Irrigation. So if that is not available, it is very difficult to expect from the farmers to expand the area beyond irrigated area. So that is why in case of wheat, whatever area is left out, that will be covered only with expansion of irrigation. That is the key factor. But very interesting is that in case of rice, the coverage of HYV is much beyond the irrigated area in rice. Now all this credit goes to the farmers on the one hand, and also it is also because Kharif crop, that is rice, is the rainy season in India. But again, I say that the risk is taken by the farmers. In case of rice only, we find that many areas which are still under unirrigated category, dependent on monsoon, still farmers are accepting the HYV seeds. So all the risk is taken by the farmers. So all the credit goes to the farmers, right? Yes, it is true that they are using various type of strategies. For example, in rice, I don't know how many of you are aware about this. There are multiple varieties. Some varieties which are known as short maturity varieties. For these, the total period required is 90 to 100 days. But all the fine varieties that are popular in India, like Basmati in North India, you know how much is the maturity period? 150 to 160 days, almost 5 months. In no part of the country we get rainfall for 5 months. And which is the largest Basmati growing area in India? It is the northwestern region. The best Basmati varieties we get from Punjab, Haryana and Western Uttar Pradesh. In other areas also we grow Basmati, but productivity is not good. And this is the area, when you study geography, you will know that this is the area where the rainfall is hardly for 60 days. And that is why these are semi-arid areas. And in these areas, the water table is very low. So the farmers are taking this crop just because these are almost 100% irrigated areas. But what is the negative side of it? If Punjab farmers are growing Basmati with very low water tables, very less recharging because of less rainfall, it means this is very dangerous for the soil. We are utilizing the underground water without thinking about availability of this water after 10 years from now. So now we are in a dilemma whether we should discourage the farmers. From the point of view of environment, we can say that yes, we should discourage the farmers of Punjab. They should not grow. But the problem is that this is the largest Basmati growing area of the country. So that is a big dilemma, and this continues. As far as coarse grains are concerned, coarse grain, I hope you all understand. Jowar, bajra, maize, ragi, right? In coarse grains also, the irrigated area is very low, 20% to 30%. But the HYV coverage is well over 70%. Why? Because here one more factor is important. And if some of you are from the agricultural background, you may be knowing that the moisture requirement for coarse grains is very less. And that is why they can be easily grown in rain-fed areas. That is why even today in India, if you see which are the largest coarse grain producing areas, so then you will realize that these are largely rain-fed areas. Right? So this is the pattern as far as the coverage of HYV is concerned. And obviously the answer is very straight, one-line answer. If we want to further expand the HYV coverage, one condition is irrigation, number one. Now, other than irrigation, what is important? You know, India is divided into several agroclimatic zones. And whenever a seed is developed in a particular area, in a particular agroclimatic zone, that is best in that zone only. But when you shift this seed to another agroclimatic zone, properties change, productivity is down. So what is the difficulty here? Like Pusa is a very big institute, very reputed institute, and all the best varieties of Basmati were developed by Pusa. But now if you take this variety from northwestern zone to say eastern zone or northeastern zone, they will not give good results. Maybe the productivity declines by 40-50%. So we need to do further research and develop the seeds as per the agroclimatic zones. That is why when we talk about the total structure, who is responsible for seed development in India, which is the apex institution for this purpose, which is this apex institution in agriculture, ICAR. So obviously the first name is ICAR, Indian Council for Agricultural Research. Now, all the research institutions of ICAR, they are largely crop specific, right? Like there is one rice research institute in Tamil Nadu, one on oil seeds in Northeast, one vegetable research institute in Eastern UP near Varanasi, and so on. Now they develop the specific varieties. That is step number 1. But now, once these varieties are transferred to other agroclimatic zones, now the second in this line is number 1. Number 2 is state agricultural universities. State agricultural universities. Now, state agricultural universities have a very important role to play here. Suppose Pusa develops a variety, now that will go to these institutes run by state governments. Now they will do further research to make it suitable for that particular agroclimatic zone. That is why if you observe the locations of the state universities across India, their location is very important, very strategic. Like in Uttar Pradesh, earlier Pantnagar University, that was catering to the need of Western Uttar Pradesh, but now it has gone into Uttarakhand. So now we have another university in Meerut. Then we have another university in Kanpur, Chandrasekhar Azad. Right? Then in the eastern UP, we have Acharya Narendra Dev, Faizabad, now it is Ayodhya. So now the 3 locations, if you see, because these are the different agroclimatic zones. So that is the role of the state agricultural universities. But with that, this was the structure for a long period. Everything was in government sector. But with liberalization in India, now a third partner has joined, and that is private sector. Now, private sector has also joined this, and when I say private sector, I mean Indian as well as foreign. Many foreign companies, they are also working in India. But now with the coming of the foreign companies and the Indian private companies, we faced a challenge. Earlier everything was under the government control, so there was no issue of exploitation of farmers. But as soon as there was entry of private sector, especially the foreign companies, it was a big issue. Right? This was the time when we were negotiating in WTO about agriculture agreement, and in WTO there was a lot of pressure on the developing countries to accept the new patent agreement. But that was very dangerous for us, especially for agriculture sector. And that was a big actually point. And finally, somehow, we agreed on one thing, that okay, if patent is to be introduced in agriculture, it will not be the normal patent law, but some changes are required. So a specific patent rule or patent law is applicable here, and that may be a question somewhere, that is called sui generis. So remember this word or note down this word. What is the patent, form of patent that is applicable in agriculture? Not the normal patent, but sui generis form of patent. Sui generis. So what is special about this in sui generis? Sui generis patent gives certain rights to the farmers. Right? So what are these rights? Number one, under sui generis system, number one, farmers enjoy the right to reuse the seed. Number one, farmers enjoy the right to reuse the seed. You see, this is the very normal practice in India. Farmers, when they purchase new seed, they don't do it every year because that is a costly affair for them. So what they do, they purchase new seed and they reuse it for few years, and then again they buy the new seed. So in the original patent proposal, we had a fear that this protection may go to the company and they don't allow you to reuse. So we demanded for this. So under sui generis, right to reuse is with the farmer. Another favorable thing is that farmers can exchange the seeds. Farmers are allowed to exchange the seed. Now this is also very normal practice in villages, that if my neighbor purchase the new seed and I know that is good one, so villagers, they normally exchange the seed. All this is allowed. But what is not allowed? Point number 3, to protect the interest of the companies, that it cannot be sold in market. Market means as seed. As grain you can sell, but not as seed. It cannot be sold in market. That was the fear of the companies. The farmers, they buy seed, and then whatever the crop, they do the repackaging and sell in the market. So that will be against the interest of the seed developers. So they said this will not be allowed. So this is what we call sui generis system of patent. So that was there to protect the interest of farmers. So now we have 3 players in this field: ICAR, state universities, and the private sector, and obviously foreign companies. Now when we develop the seed, another question in prelims may be asked: what is the names of the different steps of seed development? So it all starts with step number 1, that is called breeder seed. Then it is called foundation seed, and then it is called certified seed. Breeder, foundation, and then it is called certified. Now the stage 1, that is breeder, it is produced at the ICAR or state university level. or private companies. Obviously, when we use the breeder seed and we get a crop, so next year it will be foundation seed. When we use the foundation seed, next year it will be known as certified seed. So what the farmers get is this certified seed. Right? These are the three. Now, as far as multiplication of seed, it can be done. There are various ways. All these universities, they have their farms. They can do it on their own. Generally, from breeder to foundation, they do on their own. But now, for foundation to certified, they need a lot of land. So, in India, we have a system where the farmers, they can get themselves registered as seed growers. They get the foundation seed from these institutions, and whatever they produce, that is taken back by the universities, and then it is supplied as certified seed. So these arrangements are possible, and many farmers, they do it, right? Especially big farmers, they are registered as seed growers. But that is not very important for us. In this mechanism, one thing we have to understand, that if suppose we have 1 quintal of breeder seed developed this year, this will give us say 25 quintal of foundation seed next year, and after that it will give us 625 quintal of certified seed. So if after 2 years we need 625 quintals of certified seed, that is our requirement. So today we should have 1 quintal of breeder seed. Now this is something related with seed management. One is seed development, and now I am talking about seed management. And you know, there may be ups and downs in seed production. There may be abnormalities in weather. So that is why we have a practice of maintaining some buffer stock always of seed. But this activity of maintaining the buffer stock is not for these institutions. They are not responsible for this. For that we have another system, and we have institutions at national level and state level for management of seed. Right. So what are these institutions? So write that for management of seeds, there are two national level corporations. One is number 1, National Seed Corporation. Number 2, State Farms Corporation of India, SFCI, State Farms Corporation of India. These are two national level. Now, other than these two, there are state seed corporations at the state level also. State seed corporations at the state level. State seed corporations at the state level, other than these two. This is the government sector arrangement. Now, private companies, they maintain their own buffer stock. They have their own arrangements. So, this is the second issue. One is seed development, then seed management. Now, the third issue here is how to promote use of new seeds. Now, this promotion is done by the state governments. Promotion of seeds is the responsibility of the state governments, and for this they have their own network up to the block level. Block, I hope you all understand. So at the block level, there is one officer that is called Agriculture Development Officer, or ADO. Maybe in some other states the name is different, but ADO level officer, ADO is a post just below the BDO. So ADO agriculture is a post, and these officers are responsible for promoting new seeds, and they should interact with farmers, they should give information, they should educate the farmers. But practically I don't see many of them doing it. But state governments also give subsidy to the farmers. And this may be a question, who gives seed subsidy to the farmers? The answer is not the central government, it is the state government subsidy. And how much will be the subsidy? Obviously, it is decided by the state government on the basis of the requirement. Suppose the seed is already very old, 10-15 years old. So obviously there is no promotion required. Farmers already know about it. But if something new comes, so obviously new seeds are costly. So the government may give few rupees per kg subsidy, that is always announced as say 5 rupees per kg or 7 rupees per kg. These type of subsidies are announced, and then it is supplied as kit to the farmers. Now, despite all this, there is no doubt we can easily say that this is one big problem in our green revolution, that the farmers in India, they are not well educated about seed or the importance of new seeds, or the requirement that the seed should be replaced frequently to maintain the productivity. And that is why it is always a challenge to promote new seeds, because of the price of the new seeds. And you know, yesterday I told you that 86% of the farmers in India are small and marginal. And small and marginal means their land holding is too small, they are mostly poor, and as money is involved in replacing seed every year, so obviously they are not willing to do that, or you can say their financial condition does not allow this, right? So this is the biggest challenge. Maybe the state governments, they decide about increasing the subsidy or some new scheme they announce, but we don't see something like this happening in the near future. Now, when you are writing answers, suppose now you reach this point, now what next? So, if you want to suggest some measures, so the only thing is that you see everywhere we can write this, to educate about the benefit is the number one thing we have to do. Only then we can motivate them. Because if they are not educated about this, creating that anxiety to replace the seed does not exist, so it is impossible. Money comes at number 2, and subsidy is to take care of that. You see, I tell you my personal experience about seed, and I have my own farms in one district of Uttar Pradesh, and whenever I get time, I go there. So it is old story, almost 2 decades old. So you know, as I'm talking about seed with you, so I just wanted to educate the farmers, and I was talking to a group of farmers, and I was just emphasizing how it is important. So they listened to me very carefully. Finally, one old farmer, he asked a question to me, that my wheat that I produce is sold at say 6 rupees per kg. Right? At that time the MSP was 6-7 rupees. 6 rupees per kg, but when I want to buy new seed, it is 20-25 rupees per kg. How can you expect me to replace it every year? And I had no answer for this. Right? I came back, I continued thinking about this, but then I decided about one action. What can I do for my fellow farmers? So from next year, what I started doing, I used to buy new seed every year for 1 acre of land. And 1 acre of land in my area, productivity is easily 10 to 12 quintals, sometimes even more. So from this seed, I was getting 10 to 12 quintals. And after cleaning and everything, I used to store this separately. And it was my open offer to all my villagers, rather 3, 4, 5 villages surrounding my village, that if you come to me, I will exchange your wheat with my seed without any extra payment. And I started that process about 20 years ago. That still continues, and that has changed not everybody but many of them. So what is my feeling? That I will not say social leadership, but some type of leadership by those who can afford can change the scene. This may be a suggestion, if you like, that because everything we cannot uh, depend on the government, because government has its own limitations. But something innovative, if you do some effort, then maybe not much, but some changes are still possible. Okay. So that was about seed. Very small points here and there. But I organized that in such a manner that now I don't think it will be difficult for you to remember the seed issue. And I tell you that in no book of economics, this much detail is written. Whatever I discussed, you read any book of Indian economy, you will not get this much detail. So that is why I try to cover everything that may be important for even prelims. Like in no book they have written all this: breeder, foundation and certified. Why I am doing it this? Because agriculture is a separate subject, and that is not in our GS syllabus. There are no classes on agriculture. But there is a tendency that sometimes 1 or 2 questions they ask, and the questions are such which are not geography based or economy based, but they are purely agriculture based. And then it is very difficult to answer. So whatever my knowledge about that, I will try to cover that part. Also, I cannot claim that everything I will cover, but yes, I will try my best, right? So first point was seed or HYV seed. Now the second input is chemical fertilizers. Chemical fertilizers. Now, when we say chemical fertilizer, generally the 3 letters come into our mind: N, P, and K. Are these chemical fertilizers? NPK, are these chemical fertilizers? No. These are not chemical fertilizers. These are nutrients. These are called nutrients. So, why NPK only? Because in our soil, generally these are the deficiencies. And that is why we want to give supplements to the soil so that our soil gets NP and K. But for that, the fertilizers that we use, these are actually compounds. So the fertilizer, urea, you all know. But when I say compound, if you ever see the bag of urea, at the top of it is written nitrogen 46%. So nitrogen in urea is 46%. As it is compound, I guess 12% is phosphate and some other things, right? What is the fertilizer for P? P means phosphatic fertilizer or phosphorus. P. What is the fertilizer? One is DAP, diammonium phosphate. But the less educated farmers, they just say dye. If you talk to the farmers, they will say dye. They don't use the full name, but the full name is diammonium phosphate or DAP. But there is another version of it that is called SSP. SSP is single super phosphate. Single super phosphate, farmers say di and single. Right? What is the difference? In diammonium phosphate, the percentage of phosphate is more. In single superphosphate, the percentage of phosphate is less. In urban areas, if you do some gardening work or kitchen garden, so generally we don't use chemical fertilizers at homes. So bone meal is very popular, right? Then K or potash. The fertilizer is called MOP or murate of potash. Murate of potash. So these are the names of the fertilizers. Then how we should use these fertilizers and what is their role? Generally, if you talk about the best practices, the best thing is that there should be soil testing, stage number 1. If we have some problem, we go to the doctor. What doctor says? First you go to the pathology, get some tests done. I'll see the report, then I'll recommend the medicine. Now the same applies to the soil. There should be soil test. Deficiency is to be confirmed, and then only the fertilizer doses can be fixed. But our agriculture scientists, they know very well that most of the farmers are not doing it. So they give you just an average. And they say that ideal is soil testing, number 1. If farmers are not doing it, so second is that they should use these fertilizers in such a manner that the ratio of NPK is 4:1. That is the second best possibility, 4:1. But the question is that whether our farmers are really doing it? No. So what is the problem here? Excess use of urea. So what is the problem in fertilizer use in India? You say directly that the biggest problem is excess use of urea. The question is why farmers are doing it. One, they are not educated about this properly, that you can always say. But the second problem is that the farmers, they are not well off, and they are always trying to minimize their cost. And in the process of minimizing their cost, they are using less phosphorus and more nitrogen. And this is because the price structure is in favor of urea, or you can say distorted price structure. So what is the reason here? Distorted price structure. And when I say distorted price structure, it means urea is cheaper and phosphatic fertilizers are costlier. So what the farmers do? They will reduce the quantity of DAP and replace it by urea. Right? Like normally, my calculation according to 4:1 formula says that if it is 1 acre of land in a normal crop like wheat and paddy, it should be 1 bag of DAP and 2 bags of urea. Right? This is the perfect combination. But what the farmers do, they reduce the DAP from 50 kg to 40-35 kg and increase half bag of urea, and they believe that this is the best they can do. And who is responsible for this distorted price structure? The government itself. Why? Because it is giving more subsidy to urea and less to phosphatic fertilizers. But this all happened over a long period of time. Gradually this happened. Initially that was not a big problem. But as the urea is the most preferred fertilizer, it became a big political issue in India with time. And the difficulty is that no government in power could take the political risk and reduce the subsidy on urea. And that is why the problem still exists. And I don't know when the government will have enough courage to correct this inverted structure. Because urea is as sensitive politically as the price of sugar cane or the price of onion. Right? So onion prices are also politically sensitive. Sugarcane prices are politically sensitive in some states. So similarly, urea is a very sensitive issue and no government is trying to interfere. So this is the problem. Now finally, what is the effect of this? If this continues, what is the harm? The harm is loss of soil fertility. The loss of soil fertility. So in long term, that is a very big issue. And how big this issue is, I tell you one incident some years ago. You know, there is a very big name in agriculture. He was a famous agriculture scientist, and in fact, soil scientist. And his name was Professor Punjab Singh. And he was vice chancellor of some agricultural universities. And there was a conference in Uttar Pradesh, and he was speaking about soil. And at one point, he was so emotional about it that he literally started crying in the meeting itself. And he was saying that why farmers are not understanding that they are destroying the fertility of the soil, and one fine day there will be nothing left in soil. No? This is the problem, right? Now we are not so informed about soil fertility. We are not so emotionally attached about with the soil. So maybe we are not understanding the seriousness of the problem. But I told you the story of a national level soil scientist, and his emotions are attached with soil fertility, because the whole life he did just this, researching on soil, right? So this is the problem. Now, how this loss of soil fertility, how this happens, I tell you. Uh, Before that, you must know what are the roles of these three nutrients, N, P, and K. You see, the phosphorus or phosphatic fertilizer, this is known as fertilizer of the soil, means it increases the soil fertility. It is good for soil. And nitrogen is the fertilizer of the plant. So it transfers fertility from soil to the plant. These are the two main fertilizers used in India. In some crops, we also use potash, not in all the regions, but in some regions. Potash is known as the fertilizer for the grain. If there is deficiency of potash in any land, the health of the grain will not be good. It will be thin, it will be less in weight. So that is the sign of lack of shortage of potash. So if we just talk about the two main crop, the fertilizers N and P, so it is just like a bank account. You have a bank account, you deposit money and withdraw money. That is a regular thing we do. But suppose you deposit less and withdraw more every year, what will happen? One fine day you insert your card and you get a slip from the ATM machine, no balance. Sorry. Same is the story of the soil. Soil is the bank which stores the fertility. You have to credit fertility and then only you should debit fertility. What we are doing, credit is less and debit is more. That is the main problem. Now, in some areas like Punjab, they have reached a point where even after increasing the doses of urea, fertility is not increasing, productivity is not increasing. Means they have touched a point where now even phosphate has become irrelevant, because even phosphate is effective in the presence of organic material. And that is why the soil scientists now they are recommending in many regions that now you have to support the chemical fertilizers with organic manures. Otherwise, your chemical fertilizers will not be effective. Right? Now, this is the problem that we are facing. But now we can't say that the government is doing nothing and it is just sitting idle. They are doing whatever they can do. But before I come to that, there is another side of this. Whether this whole initiative of the government to increase the use of chemical fertilizer, how it tried to do that, whether it was successful, and what are the problems, right? Here I just told you about the farmers, their attitude, right? Now we come to another aspect of it that we call fertilizer policy. And when I am saying policy, obviously it means I am talking about the government action. When Green Revolution was introduced, one of the big challenges that we faced was how to increase production and consumption of chemical fertilizers. Because at the time of beginning of Green Revolution, in India, we were hardly producing and consuming 1 lakh ton of chemical fertilizers. That was negligible, right? So now the challenge before the government was not only to promote consumption, but also to promote production. And for that, we started a very unique experiment or a very unique policy. What was this policy? I'm going to give you an example so you will understand this whole policy easily. Suppose this is not the actual figure, I'm just taking a random number. Suppose the cost of production of fertilizer is 8,000 rupees per ton, right? Say it is urea, 8,000 rupees per ton. Obviously, farmers will not buy at this rate. This is high for them. So what the government says now, that its MRP will be 5,000 rupees per ton. Now, if something is produced and its cost is 8,000, how can a government force anybody to sell it at 5,000? You know, there is a term used in our system that is called Administered Price Mechanism, APM. Today, there is hardly any use of it, but there was a time, 60s, 70s, when the government was using this administered price mechanism on many items. Means the government was fixing the price, and that was binding on the producers or the sellers. So how the government is fixing this? This is under the policy of APM. But if the government simply orders, all these producers will close their units. So the government is, while it is ordering to sell it at 5,000, at the same time the government is saying that don't worry, this difference of 3,000 rupees per ton you will get as subsidy. So this is called fertilizer subsidy, number one. But the producers say that, sir, we are not saints, we are not government, because government may work without profit, but we are doing all this for profit, and in this case our profit is zero. So the government says, don't worry, there is another scheme for you. Over and above your cost, you will get 12% extra. So 960 will be added, so it will be 8960, and this 12% extra you will get as profit or assured profit. This is the system that we developed, and this continues even today. Yes, not exactly in the same form, but this is the system. Now, in this system, we targeted two things. One, less price for farmers, and number two, assured return or assured profit for the manufacturers. Obviously, both were happy, so the policy was successful. So as far as the comment on the fertilizer policy, we can say that this fertilizer policy was very successful as far as promotion of consumption and production is concerned. And how can we say that? From less than 1 lakh ton, our total consumption and production is well over 400 lakh ton. So from less than 1 lakh ton to more than 400 lakh ton, it is definitely a success story. And that is actually an important move of the government which supported green revolution in India. Because chemical fertilizer was one important input in green revolution. So as far as success of the green revolution, the policy was successful. But with time, as time passed, like in 1980, the total fertilizer subsidy of the government was approximately 500 crore only, annual subsidy. So it was easy for the government, no issues. But in next 10 years, by 1990, the subsidy crossed 4,000 crore, touching 4,400 crores. Another 10 years, about 2000, it crossed 14,000 crore. So now it was increasing at a much faster rate. Why? Because of this subsidy structure. You know, the cost will increase every year. And the government, just to make sure that the fertilizer prices should not increase very fast, larger part of this increase in cost will be absorbed by the government as subsidy. Obviously, subsidy burden will increase. At the same time, decade after decade, the use of fertilizer also increased. So this 3,000 plus 960 means if it is total 3,960 or roughly 4,000 rupees per ton, and if the number of ton is increasing, obviously the subsidy amount is increasing. And today it is 70,000-80,000 crore, but for past 2 years it is expected to touch 1 lakh crore because of sudden increase in phosphatic raw material. Because of the war, the global prices have increased and the government has to increase phosphatic fertilizer subsidy, and it is expected to touch 1 lakh crore rupee. Now, for a country like India with limited revenues with the government, now sustainability of this level of subsidy is difficult. And that is why we always are worried about the increasing fertilizer subsidy. Okay. So, what all changes the government tried during the last 3 decades? Because most of the changes in all the sectors we see only after 1991. So in this case also, most of the changes were introduced after 1990. So now the heading is, you have noted down this structure. Just remember the keywords. One is this APM, administered price mechanism. One word. I'm writing it here. Administered price mechanism. And this we apply in other areas also, because administered price mechanism can be used at other places. Because administer means here the intervention of the government, right? So now the heading is important changes in government policy. Important changes in the government policy. Number one, deregulation of phosphatic and potassic fertilizers, with effect from August 1992. With effect from August 1992. Deregulation of phosphatic and potassic fertilizers with effect from August 1992. So, what is the meaning of deregulation here? Deregulation simply means now they are out of this APM. Means now the government said that we will not fix the price. The manufacturer only will fix the price. So the question is whether subsidy was withdrawn after that. No, subsidy was not withdrawn. The government said that all the phosphatic and potassic manufacturers, fertilizer manufacturers, they will get a fixed subsidy per ton decided by the government, of course, and whatever the increase of cost beyond that, they were free to increase the price. Now this was very adverse because at that time it was discussed, and in fact logically if the government was going to introduce this new system, it should have been introduced for all the three fertilizers. But somehow the government could not take the decision, or they are scared about the political outcomes. So they said that okay, fine, we are doing it right now for phosphatic and potassic, and we will decide about urea very soon. And for 30 years we are waiting, that very soon has not come. Right? So that has made a big difference. And that is why this gap is widening year after year. And this distorted structure is further distorted. So another line, another sentence you may write, the MRP of urea is statutorily fixed by the Government of India. That is called APM. The statutory word is used when there is some body, government body involved in this. So they are using the word statutory. Or even if you want to avoid, there is no problem. So the MRP of urea is fixed by the Government of India, or if you want to write the word statutorily, when there is some statutory body deciding anything, so that is called. So government is fixing it, and the difference is widening, that problem continues. Now this continued for a long time, nothing happened, but one big decision was taken in 2010, means 18 years after that. The next point is about 2010. And that is called NBS, Nutrient Based Subsidy Scheme, was announced. Nutrient Based Subsidy Scheme was announced. NBS policy 2010. Nutrient Based Subsidy Scheme was announced. Now, when I say nutrient based, it means that earlier, when the government was fixing the subsidy, it was for specific fertilizers like urea, DAP, SSP, MOP. Now, because of this policy of the government, there was a limitation that the fertilizer manufacturers were manufacturing only those fertilizers for which the government subsidy was announced. But India is a country with so many crops, and the requirement is different in different crops. So we needed to promote a number of mixed fertilizers, means NPK, that is called mixed fertilizer. Sometimes all the three are present, sometimes two are present. So NPK or PNK. But for this, there was no incentive earlier. Now, when the government said that now the subsidy will be for N, P, and K, it means now any combination can be produced. On the basis of that, the government will calculate how much is the N or P or K, and on that basis, subsidy amount will be calculated. So this is called nutrient-based subsidy scheme. And now we have various combinations of NPK and PK being produced by our industries. Not only this nutrient, the government also announced that if they combine micronutrients, then they will get additional subsidy, because micronutrients are required in many crops, like in paddy cultivation, just to as a preventive dose. Farmers sometimes use zinc sulfate because zinc is a micronutrient that is widely used in the paddy crop. But now zinc sulfate is a costly chemical, and that is why the poor farmers, they don't use it, and that is why this is a crop loss. So now the government says it is just like the case of adding iodine to salt. Now if there is an advisory from the health ministry that in India there is deficiency of iodine, and the ministry recommends that they should use certain things, certain medicines for iodine. I don't know how many people will do that exactly. So what the government said, it asked the salt manufacturers to add iodine to the salt. And then the iodine salt was promoted, though today there is a lot of dispute over this also, and many experts say that this was a wrong policy because iodine deficiency was regional. Why they are imposing iodine on everybody in the country? So that is some issue related with the experts. But here when the government says that okay, if you add micronutrients to NPK combinations, you will get additional subsidy. So that is for the benefit of the farmers, because now the farmers will get the same micronutrient at a lesser price, because when they use the micronutrients on their own, they are not well educated about the use, and chances of wastage are high. So what are the micronutrients that we generally use? Zinc I have already written here. Another is sulfur and boron. Sulfur and boron. Right? Sulfur and boron. So remember this, the facts that I tell you while I discuss anything, these facts I dictate just to target the prelims questions, right? So these are the micronutrients. Now this policy continued. In the meantime, the government advised the urea manufacturers to add neem to urea, that is called neem coating of urea. Initially it was optional, but in 2015 neem coating became compulsory. So the cabinet took a decision, and in these type of decisions are taken by which committee? There are various committees that we call cabinet committees. So Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs took the decision and they notified it. Now it was now compulsory for all the urea manufacturers to go for neem coating in 2015. What is the benefit of it? Neem coating. In 2016 prelims, they asked this question. What is the benefit of neem coating? There are 2-3 things we can easily say. Number one, when neem coating is done, the rate of decomposition of urea is slower. Because when we urea, the whole process, urea we capture from nature, means from environment, and that is converted into a compound that we call urea. But if you see urea white, and if you just take it with some moisture in your hand, it will immediately convert into liquid and then evaporate, larger part of it. So that is the nature of urea. So when the farmers were using urea, so larger part of it, say in some cases 50% was used by the plant and rest 50% evaporated back to the nature. So when the process is slowed down, obviously lesser fertilizer will do the same thing. And as per the estimates of the government or the ministry, the effect of this neem coating is different on different crops, and it varies between, the benefit varies between 6% to 18%. This is the official estimate. So 6% to 18% is the advantage, means the crop productivity increases. Why? Because the urea becomes more effective. That is one thing that we can do. Number two, it is natural pesticide. So the cost of pesticide is reduced. Neem is a natural pesticide. Today, as everything is promoted by companies only, we don't believe, or most of us don't believe on our past knowledge. But I tell you, when I was a kid and I was frequently going to my village with my grandfather, and mostly during summer vacations, I was always in my village. And as a kid, I was never staying at home, even if it was very warm outside, loo. But we were playing outside, maybe in at different places. So it was a very common feature that eyes were red. So what was the treatment? There was no medicine in the villages, no antibiotic. So the only thing was that the neem leaves, they were boiled in water, and we were asked to close our eyes. So it just 10-15 minutes, warm leaves, and then we used to wash our eyes with that water, and by next morning everything was fine, and we were again back to the playground. So that is a natural antibacterial, and that is why if you see many of the naturopathists, if you talk to them, they will suggest that eating 4-5 leaves of neem per day is very good for your health, and it takes care of many of the problems. But obviously taste is not good. So, but yes, this is good at least for the farmers, right? Neem coating. What is the third benefit of it? That is economic benefit to the government, and then some facility to the farmer. You see, government was regularly observing one thing, that it is giving lot of subsidy for urea The production number, when they study, it was enough for the country. But when it was the season, and the farmers required fertilizer, urea was always short. And there were issues, sometimes lathi charge, means it was a law and order issue for the state governments. So when the government tried to find out, then it realized that lot of urea manufacturers, they are taking the money from the government in the name of supplying urea to the farmers, but they were diverting this urea to many of the industries, chemical industries, and they were just converting urea into nitrogen and using it for various purposes. So neem coating has stopped that too. And it is not that for past 5-10 years we have suddenly increased urea production, like government claims that now there is no shortage of urea. So it is not that we have suddenly doubled or tripled the urea production in India. It is increasing at its own pace. But what has changed is that now diversion has stopped. Now, because of this diversion, government has saved money that was unnecessarily going to the manufacturers. And for farmers, the convenience is that now they easily get urea when they need it, because it is readily available in the market. So that was the case of neem coating of urea. Then in 2016, another 2016 we introduced DBT system in fertilizer. DBT in fertilizer. What was the third benefit of neem coating? I said 3 benefits. One was that it is now less required as the rate of decomposition increase. So less quantity will give the same result, or the same quantity will give better results. Number 2, it was natural pesticide. And number 3, it was saving money for the government, right? So these are the 3 advantages we have. And you may add that it is natural pesticide, so it will reduce the cost of the farmers on pesticides. So now direct benefit transfer. What is DBT? We all understand. But generally when we talk about DBT, what we know is that it is direct benefit transfer to the consumer. But in fertilizer, this is different. In fertilizer, who is getting the subsidy from the government? Suppose this is the question. In fertilizer DBT, who is getting the subsidy from the government? Farmer or manufacturer? It is not the farmer. It is the manufacturer. Manufacturer. So how the government is giving this subsidy to the manufacturer? The government says that now when there is sale of fertilizer, the buyer, means the farmer, will do the biometric, that we call biometric authentication. That will be recorded, and the government will know which company sold how much fertilizer during the season. And the subsidy will be released on the basis of that only. It means, what is the important shift here? That earlier the government was paying subsidy on the basis of production. Now there is further tightening of the manufacturers, that now the government will pay subsidy only on the basis of consumption. So that is a very big and major important shift from production based subsidy to consumption based subsidy. That is the way we calculate it. And That is doing very well, and the government was able to save a lot of subsidy through these processes. One is neem coating and another is DBT. And now we are doing few more things, though it is not compulsory as yet. And for example, the liquid urea or nano urea, right? And it has started. IFCO has launched it, but now it is not yet compulsory. Maybe the government is giving some time to the urea manufacturers to switch to nano urea. And what is nano urea? Nano urea is liquid urea, right? And as per the IFCO statements, 500 ml bottle will be equal to 1 bag of urea. 500 ml bottle will be equal to 1 bag of urea. That will be huge saving on transportation and storage, because urea is not used regularly or a continuous basis. So the urea producers, what they do, they just create inventory. So they need lot of space for storage, and only during the season this is used. So now just imagine storing 1 bag of urea and storing 1 bottle of urea. How much is the difference? And then obviously transportation. Urea is a bulk item. There is a lot of transportation cost involved, because urea plants are not located in every region, in every district. So there is a lot of transportation cost. So we are going to save on this. And now we are still waiting for the studies. But the experts say that if we use urea like it is in the form of granules growing in the soil, so the use by the soil is less in percentage terms, but the same liquid urea, if we spray on the plants, the productivity will increase, and that will be another benefit to the farmers. And obviously the areas where the farmers are more educated, more advanced technologically, so now the government is pushing the farmers for the use of drones. So though drone will involve some cost, but that is not that costly. A small drone you can get in market for anything around 8 to 10,000 rupees. So that is not so costly. And farmers are being promoted to use drones, because that will be more convenient and more balanced spray, right? Using the drones. Like when we talk about, when we talk about farmers in India, we compare with farmers in Israel. What is the difference? The farmers in Israel, they are using every possible technology to reduce the effort and maximize the production. Like whatever our farmers produce, say, talk about, say, some vegetables, say tomato. So whatever our farmer produce in 1 acre, an Israeli farmer will produce 10 times of that, using all sort of technologies, right? They are not using manures like we use in quintals. Everything there is micro. They are using everything, all the fertilizers are going to the plants through the drip or sprinkle, right? So, but that is a different story. We cannot compare Indian farmers with Israel farmers. But here in India, it has started. And I was reading about all this in some article, and the government has already established 30 such centers of excellence, to promote these technologies among the farmers. And they are inviting farmers visit there, they get trained, and whatever their capacity, they are adopting the new things and increasing the productivity. So this is all going on. Nano urea is the latest development in this field. So that was about the whole development. So now you have the complete picture of the fertilizer policy right from before 92 status and the present status. Now finally one more fact I would like to tell you, and that is for prelims, that if there is any question uh, about the self-reliance in case of chemical fertilizers. So we have three type of fertilizers, N, P and K. So in which fertilizer India is self-reliant? Right? Answer is none of these. Right? So India is importing all the three fertilizers, but yes, we are better off in case of urea. So write a note here that India imports approximately 33% of total consumption of fertilizers. 33% of total consumption of fertilizer. So this is the aggregate position. Now if we say fertilizer wise, so import dependence 25% in case of urea, 25% in case of urea, 50% in phosphates, 50% in phosphates, and 100% in potash. 100% in potash. So potash we import 100%, right? Because we don't have raw material for this. Even in phosphatic we import a lot of raw material, and that is why all these fertilizers are affected by international prices. Because when we import the fertilizers, if they suppose we are comfortable in India, whatever we produce, but when the import is compulsory, means 25% we have to import, and that is costly because that we will be importing from the world market. So always remember that the government gives subsidy not only for domestic producers but also to the importers, because you cannot have two prices for the same product in the country. So if 70% we are producing, so what about remaining 25%? The government asks the companies to purchase from the world market, and whatever the price difference, that is paid by the government. So if there is any question whether subsidy is paid to imported urea, so answer is yes. Right? So that was about chemical fertilizers. So any doubt, any question? Okay. Now we move to the third input, that is pesticides. Now pesticide is not a big issue. Not a big issue, I'm saying, because there is not much to discuss here, right? Otherwise it is big. So there are 2-3 points. First I'll dictate and then we will discuss. So as far as pesticide is concerned, pesticides, point number 1, average consumption of pesticide in India, average consumption of pesticide in India is less than 400 grams per hectare. Less than 400 grams per hectare, as compared to the world average, of 500 grams. Right? Number one. The second point here is that only 25 to 30%, only 25 to 30% of total cultivated area, 25 to 30% of total cultivated area is under pesticide cover. So, means both points are related with less than required use. And we know the answer. Why? Just 2 points are enough to write. One, lack of education or awareness about these things. And number two, purchasing power of farmers. So 2 points you can write: lack of awareness. Why less use? So lack of awareness and less purchasing power. Now this is about the overall situation. But we have some state-wise interesting informations. You see, whenever we talk about the best performance, normally the answer is Punjab. In which state the productivity is maximum? It is Punjab. If the question is in which state average use of chemical fertilizers is maximum, the answer is Punjab. But if I ask this question, in which state the average use of pesticide is maximum, is it the same answer? Answer is no. Answer is Tamil Nadu. And the reason is also very interesting. You know, the pesticide we use in those crops where the pest attack or the tendency of pest attack is more. Now, the tendency of pest attack is more in the seasons which are warm and humid. Means I am talking about Kharif season. But in Rabi crops, there is less requirement. Like in North India, it is very difficult to see a farmer using pesticide because it is very cold and rarely there is any pest attack, whether it is main crop wheat or say some pulses that we grow or mustard, that is common crop during Rabi. So hardly any use of it. So when it is about Punjab, in one season the farmers may be using, another season they don't use, so obviously the average goes down. But the case of Tamil Nadu is different. Tamil Nadu is a state where they get more rainfall during winters than the summers because of the rain shadow reason. Right? And that is why Tamil Nadu is a state where they grow 2 crops of paddy and the productivity in winter is better than summer. Generally, for the country as a whole, if question is asked in which season we grow rice or paddy, answer is Kharif crop. But in Tamil Nadu, they do it in both the seasons and Rabi season is better for them. And it is quite possible to see this scene that in one field there is harvesting of paddy and another seed, in another field there is a fresh crop of, that is quite possible. They are these 2 consecutive crops of paddy. So obviously when they are growing paddy in 2 seasons, it means this warm and humid conditions are prolonged in Tamil Nadu, and that is why they use on an average more. There is another angle to see it. In India, 50% of pesticides are used in just 2 crops, paddy and cotton. So obviously the paddy and cotton growing states will be using it more. 50% of pesticide in India is used in two crops only, paddy and cotton. So this is one thing we have to know. And obviously, if the question is less than required use of pesticide, what is the harm in it? It leads to crop losses, loss in productivity, and that is an economic loss. But can we say that in every case it is less use? No. The other side that is not reflected in these reports, generally because they are talking about the large crops only. Excessive use of pesticide, especially in fruits and vegetables, is becoming a challenge. And obviously, excessive use is, I will say worse than less use. Why? Because if it is less use, what we lose is just some economic benefit. But if you are using excessively this chemical, this pesticide, and that goes into body, the whole environment or an ecology chain, it means humans, birds, animals, everybody is adversely affected. That is why these days there are so many types of diseases. Doctors are just unable to find out the reason. I have many friends in that circle. Sometimes we discuss that, and in private only they acknowledge this, obviously not publicly, that sometimes it is very difficult to find out the reason. So what they are doing, they are just going for symptomatic treatment. Symptomatic means if there is fever, तो fever की दवा दे दिया, बहुत शोर मचाया अपने, बॉडी एक है तो उसका दवा दे दिया, कहा खांसी भी आ रही है तो उसका भी दवा दे दिया, and they are just waiting कि body will cure itself. जैसे वायरल में क्या होता है, it is same way we treat the body, because in viral has its own cycle. लोग कहते हैं जुकाम हो गया है, दवा खाओगे तो एक हफ्ते में ठीक होगे, नहीं होगे तो 7 दिन में ठीक हो जाओगे. Because it will take its own time, but during those 7 days, why the treatment is necessary? Because when there is viral, the body is weak during that time, right? So the chances of getting infected from other things are high, and that is why we need protection. इसलिए दवा देते हैं, इसलिए डॉक्टर कई बार एंटीबायोटिक चला देते हैं, just to make sure कि कुछ और नहीं हो जाए उसके बाद. Otherwise, viral will go in 7 days, whether you treat it or not. So that is another thing we are facing. Excessive use, like in Delhi and around, the irrigation water that they are using, often that is not good. Like they are using Yamuna water or drainage water. It contains lot of things. And then after harvesting, they are using chemicals. Forget about production. यहाँ पे just beside Batra, वो 2-3 सब्जी वाला है ना. So I used to stay in SFS for many years. तो मैं जब भी उधर से आता था वो मुझे पहचान गया था. He was knowing me. तो मैं जब भी निकलता था तो मैं उससे एक ही चीज पूछता था कि तुम मुझको ये बताओ कि तुम्हारी सारी सब्जी का रंग एक ही जैसा हरा क्यों है. Why all the vegetables have the same shade of green? भाई ठीक है, green vegetable, but they have, all the vegetable have different shades. परवर का लाइट ग्रीन होगा तो भिंडी का डार्क ग्रीन होगा तो किसी का और ग्रीन. पर हमने कहा तुम्हारी सारी सब्जी का देयर इज सेम ग्रीन शेड, बिकॉज आई न्यू द प्रैक्टिस. वो सुबह सुबह सब्जियां लेकर आते हैं तो दे टेक अ टब, उसमें ग्रीन कलर कोई केमिकल दे मिक्स, एंड जस्ट टू मेक द इंश्योर दैट इट रिमेन्स फ्रेश फॉर लॉन्गर टाइम, उसमें सारा डिप करके देन दे कीप इट द होल डे. तो दैट इज वेरी, पता नहीं कौन सा केमिकल डालता, मैंने पूछा तो बताया भी नहीं उसने. मैंने कहा भाई यही बता दे. कौन सा केमिकल है? ऐसा तो नहीं कि तुम्हारी सब्जी खा के निपट जाए हम एक दिन तो, बट दिल्ली में दिस इज वेरी डेंजरस. I love green vegetables, but while I am in Delhi, मैं हमेशा ये मेरे दिमाग में चलता रहता है कि खाऊं नहीं खाऊं, खाऊं नहीं खाऊं, क्योंकि मुझे पता है कि इनकी प्रैक्टिसेस क्या है. दे आर यूजिंग ऑल सॉर्ट ऑफ फाउल थिंग्स टू कीप द वेजिटेबल ग्रीन. ठीक है, तो these are the two sides of pesticides, but this is not a very big issue. Now we come to another issue, the last one, that is another very big issue in our economy or in our agriculture sector, that is irrigation. Irrigation. Now there are 2-3 things you can write why irrigation is required. जैसे कोई कहीं पर if you think कि इसको लिखना चाहिए, it should be part of your answer. So I am dictating you 2-3 points. So, irrigation in India is important due to the following reasons. Irrigation in India is important due to the following reasons. Number one, the period of rainfall is restricted to only 4 months. Is restricted to only 4 months in a year. Restricted to only 4 months in a year. Full stop. Rest of the months are dry. Rest of the months are dry. Full stop. This is one reason. Second, even this rainfall is uncertain and irregular. Even this rainfall is uncertain and irregular. And number 3, more land can be brought under cultivation. More land can be brought under cultivation with assured irrigation. More land can be brought under cultivation with assured irrigation. So, these are the things we can write in favor of irrigation facilities, why we need larger coverage of it. But some of the basic facts about irrigation are, first, if we talk about the sources of it, what are the sources and how we define the sources? So, in India, the sources are defined on the basis of command area. Command area. That is the term we use for irrigation. And in command area, the words that we use, minor irrigation facility means less than 2000 hectares. Then medium, that is 2000 to 10,000 hectares, and then large, that is more than 10,000 hectares. So minor irrigation, medium irrigation, and large, or you can say major irrigation. If you want to use all 3 M, so you can use the word major. Minor, medium, and major. So now if you link the two things, here I have given the area and here I am saying command area. So what is command area? It is just opposite to another term that is called catchment area. So catchment area, you understand easily. In geography, when you study the drainage system, so there also we use the term catchment area. So catchment area means if it is some drainage system, so all the area from where the water is coming towards that drainage, that is called the catchment area of that drainage system. Command area is just opposite of it. In catchment area, the water is coming towards a point. In command area, it is moving away from a point. So suppose there is a pumping set or tube well. So the area that can be irrigated using this will be called command area of that tube well. But this term is more important in the context of canal irrigation. Right? You see, suppose there is a large canal moving through many districts, but we cannot irrigate our land directly from this canal. So that is why you may have observed that when these large canals are constructed, then after some distances, minor canals are linked to this, or they originate from the canal, and then from minor canals, then the channels are constructed, and this channel brings the water to the field. So this whole area can be irrigated. If there is any weakness in our minor canals or the channels are not properly developed, so it is quite possible there is water in the canal, but the land is unirrigated. That is why when the canal systems developed in India, because initially most of the public investment in irrigation, in agriculture was in irrigation, whether it was dam construction or canals. So after some time it was realized that we have canals, but still we have unirrigated areas just because we have not developed the whole system properly. So in 1975, there was a scheme started that was called CADP, Command Area Development Program. So the scheme was known as Command Area Development Program, and it was largely targeting the canal irrigation. But despite all the efforts and initiatives of the various governments, the irrigation potential in India is still much less than what we can do. Now, if we go into the reasons of this, why? Because initially the speed was good, but now we have slowed down. You know why? It is because of several reasons. Initially, the whole irrigation that was developed, it was largely the responsibility of the government, and that is why the share of canal was maximum. But now things started changing with time, and that is why if today you face the question that which is the largest source of irrigation in India, so what will be the answer? It is not canal, it is tube well, because this contribution of tube well is 60% and canal is just 30%. 10 is others, ponds, lakes and other conventional methods. So this change itself says a lot. During the first 30-40 years, everything was fine. the things were moving at a faster rate. But then two developments. Number one, the most of the projects started in the northern part initially. What is the positive side in the northern India? Or you can say favorable thing in the northern India. For canal irrigation, two things are required: that the soil should be soft enough so that canal digging is possible, and then the slope is important. In geography, there is a line that is called water dividing line in India, right? Vertical line. So on the east of it, we have the Gangetic plains, and on the west, it is the plain of the Indus. Some part is in India, some is in Pakistan. So now in these regions, canal irrigation was possible. Why? Because the geographical conditions were favorable, number one. Number two, the source of water in these regions was the rivers originating from the glaciers. So availability of the water throughout the year was another advantage. So that is why northern part of the country, the states here, their irrigated area is much better than other states. But when you move south to the Vindhyas, now the things change. The western side of the country that we call Western Ghat is very irregular. So at some places canal irrigation is just not possible because of geographical reasons. Now towards Maharashtra, there is some possibility, and in geography you will study about it. There is a dam there that is called Koyna Dam, and if you read about the big earthquakes in India, one was there many years ago. I don't remember the year exactly, Koyna Dam. But most of the large or major projects, irrigation projects, they are towards the eastern Ghats, because that is comparatively plain and the slope is favorable. So they face geographical challenges, number one. And number two, all the rivers there in the southern India, they originate from lakes which again depend on rainfall. That is why you see, in northern India, we face the problem of floods every year. But in southern part of the country, they are always fighting for water. Whether it is Krishna or Godavari, Kaveri, right? All the states, they are fighting. Like when it was Narmada, so it became a different issue. But initially there was a dispute between Gujarat and Madhya Pradesh about water sharing. So that is one. So this is geographical difference between the two. But another part is economic side of it. You see, initially when the government allocated funds for irrigation, the whole money was for the project. But as now some projects were already complete, when money was coming, larger part of this money was going for the maintenance of older canals, and they were getting less and less for the new projects. And that is why the process slowed down a lot. And that is why you see the progress. So during the first 30 years, the progress was faster than these 3-4 decades. These are the two basic reasons, because when the northern part is already covered, obviously the new areas that we have to address, that is very challenging geographically, availability of water and economic factor is there. Now the government is helpless if it is a geographical issue or availability of water issue. They cannot create water. So we are trying to address that. And you may have heard about linking of rivers, right? You know who gave this idea? for the first time. When I was discussing planning, what I said, the most visionary person, एम विश्वेश्वरैया. ठीक है. भारत में प्रॉब्लम सबसे बड़ी पता है क्या है कि द बेस्ट पर्सनालिटीज हु रियली कॉन्ट्रीब्यूटेड, उनके बारे में हमारी बुक्स में सबसे कम लिखा हुआ है. और जो जुगाड़ वाले हैं वो हर किताब में उनकी फोटो छपी जाती है. Why your generation should not know about एम विश्वेश्वरैया? अगर हमको जीवनियां ही पढ़ानी है तो आपको पॉलिटिशियंस की जीवनी क्यों पढ़ेंगे? एम विश्वेश्वरैया की स्टोरी क्यों नहीं पढ़ेंगे हम? दैट विल गिव यू समथिंग पॉजिटिव. तो ही वॉज द फर्स्ट पर्सन, बट ऑब्वियसली just after independence our resources were very limited and these are very huge projects requiring lot of money, so we never thought about it. It was during the prime ministership of Atal Bihari Vajpayee we started talking about it, but nothing serious happened. But now we have few projects just started and we hope in future there will be more. तो उसमें टेक्निकल इश्यूज है, इकोनॉमिक इश्यूज है. लेट अस सी व्हाट हैपेंस. तो ऑल दिस वाज गोइंग ऑन. नाउ द गवर्नमेंट वाज वेरी सीरियस अबाउट इंक्रीजिंग द इरिगेशन पोटेंशियल एंड आफ्टर रिफॉर्म्स वी वर ट्राइंग टू रिव्यू एवरीथिंग. तो ये भी इश्यू था, हाउ टू बूस्ट दिस प्रोसेस. Now for that there was a big report, a big review, and in this review the report was very surprising. There were approximately 500 irrigation projects incomplete in India, small and large. Can you believe 500 irrigation projects? And why they were incomplete? Because all these irrigation projects, you know, agriculture is a state subject. So all these irrigation projects, they were state projects. And the very common practice in India is that whenever something is announced by a minister or there is a budget, every MP wants something for his or her constituency. And there is a tendency in the government to convince everybody, give something to everybody. Now in the process, what we did over these years, we started many projects without considering the availability of money for the completion of the projects. That is the biggest issue. So during 90s, we tried to address this problem, and a scheme was announced at that time that is called AIBP, Accelerated Irrigation Benefit Program. So, Accelerated Irrigation Benefit Program. Accelerated Irrigation Benefit Program. So, few points about this scheme. Number one, this scheme was initiated by the central government. This scheme was initiated by the central government in 1996-97. In 1996-97. Number one. Next, the objective of the scheme was faster completion of incomplete irrigation projects. Faster completion of incomplete irrigation projects. So what was the offer here? Central government knew it very well why the projects are pending, not complete, just because the states, they did not have money. So under this scheme, the center said, okay, we are ready to provide you financial help. But initially that was loan. Center believed that the states will take it seriously and they will borrow from the center and complete the projects. But the states, they were not very excited about this offer and they wanted grant from the center, because you know the difference. If it is a grant, it is not to be repaid. If it is a loan, it is to be repaid with interest. So states, they showed their helplessness. They said that we are already under lot of loan and we don't want to increase it. And they played very cleverly, because they knew that the center is announcing ambitious irrigation projects at the national level. Now the pressure is more on the center to convince the states. और आपको पता है, जब बार्गेनिंग आप करते हो, whenever you bargain, so if you are more interested in something, so you lose in bargaining, you are weak there. जैसे आप कोई सामान खरीदने जाते हो ना, you go to a shop, you want to buy some, say, clothes, and you see something and you show your excitement, you give a chance to the shopkeeper. वो समझ जाता है कि अच्छा, अब ये बंदा इसको तो लेके जाएगा, फिर वो आपको कोई कंसेशन नहीं देगा. So be very calm, composed, don't show your reaction. ठीक है, और दिखा भाई. वो कहते कि ठीक है, अच्छा है, but I wanted something else. Now you are in bargaining position, right? So same happened between center and states. Now the states, they played very smartly. They did not take loan from the government and they said that, okay, we are ready, but if it is grant. Now in the meantime, what happened? It was not very successful initially. In 2004-5, there was change in the government and UPA 1 government comes to power, and as soon as they come to power, they announced a very ambitious program, that was Bharat Nirman program or Bharat Nirman Yojana. Bharat Nirman program or Bharat Nirman Yojana. Now in this they say that in next 4 years, means in 4 years, they said that we will achieve 10 million hectares of additional irrigation potential. 10 million means 1 crore hectare. That is a very ambitious target. And center knew it very well that states are not going to cooperate. So now at this time, 2004, the center said, okay, case by case basis, some part of it will be grant. But even that was not acceptable to the states. And for a couple of years, these things continued. But when the center was very, very eager to make this program complete, so in December 2006, finally, the center offered that, okay, there will be a 25% grant component. That is the practice normally in other schemes. So 25% grant, and obviously 90% to the northeastern states. after this only there was some progress, but uh, the exact data is not available how much they could do using these schemes. So this continued 2006 December. In 2014 there was change in the government, and there were many schemes here and there other than AIBP. So now the the new government has a tendency to integrate schemes, and a composite scheme is known as PM and whatever the name of the scheme. So this new government said, okay, all the ongoing schemes will be merged into one integrated scheme, and that was called Prime Minister Sichai Yojana or Krishi Sichai Yojana. PM Krishi Sichai Yojana, or in short we call it PMKSY. Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sichai Yojana. Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sichai Yojana. Right? You are able to understand? Krishi Sichai Yojana. Krishi agriculture, Sichai irrigation. So it is Prime Minister's irrigation scheme, you can say, but it is a Hindi name, so better you remember the short form, PMKSY. That will be enough. So what are the salient features of this scheme? So write few points. That it was announced in July 2015. It was announced in July 2015 for a period of 5 years. For a period of 5 years, with an outlay of rupees 50,000 crore. Outlay is the word used for allocation of money. So with an outlay of rupees 50,000 crore. So the central government said that this is the money available. Now states have to compete for this money. So there will be offers by the center. And period is obviously 1516 to 1920, though it has been extended after that, and still it is going on. But initially it was for 5 years. Now the interesting thing about this scheme is to study the objectives of this, because there is some vision hidden behind those objectives, what we really want to do about the irrigation in India. So major objectives of this scheme are number one, to achieve convergence of investments, in irrigation at the field level. In simple words, if I say, they wanted to merge all the schemes. So convergence of investment, that is the term used. Number two, to expand cultivable area under assured irrigation, And there is a tagline for this that is used frequently by the government. That is Har Khet Ko Pani. So in bracket you may write Har Khet Ko Pani, means water to all the fields. This is I am translating for you only. Har Khet Ko Pani, water to all the fields. Then the third is improve upon water use efficiency. Water use efficiency. Water use efficiency to reduce wastage of water. To reduce wastage of water. And there is a tagline for this also: more crop per drop. More crop per drop. Drop of water means more crop per drop. And obviously how we are going to do this? So the idea in this scheme is that adoption of precision irrigation, that we can also use the term micro irrigation. So the next point is to enhance the adoption of adoption of precision irrigation. And here precision irrigation means minor irrigation. Means the water will go precisely to that plant. So that is called precision irrigation. In bracket you may write micro irrigation. So what is micro irrigation? What are the examples of micro irrigation? It is drip irrigation and sprinkle irrigation. Drip irrigation we use in horticulture crops, and for other crops we use sprinkle irrigation. Now even sprinkle irrigation has a very interesting effect. Have you ever observed we give fertilizer, we give regular water to our plants, but this is the greenest and the texture of the leaves are best in monsoon only. Why? Because when we get the rainwater, there is nitrogen fixation with rainwater. Same quantity of water you give through irrigation, and the same quantity your field gets through rainfall. So rainfall will always be better. But as it is not available, then we go for irrigation. Okay, so I should make it clear. Irrigation is better than monsoon. But as monsoon is not available, so next best alternative is irrigation. So these are the questions may be asked. What is micro irrigation, precision irrigation? So these are same, and the examples are drip, number 1, and number 2 is sprinkle, right? And various state governments are giving lot of subsidy for the equipments that we use, because this is the only issue with marginal farmers, because these equipments are costly. So like the rich states like Haryana government, I guess they are giving up to 50% subsidy on these equipments. Other states are also giving, because this is something that will save water. What is the purpose of this? Water conservation, or reduce the wastage of water. And obviously in the same scheme there is one more thing you add, one more point: enhance recharge of aquifers. Enhance recharge of aquifers means water bodies. Now, as the intention of the government earlier in planning also discussed it, that all these schemes which are being implemented, So it is not mentioned everywhere, but I tell you that all the schemes that are being implemented, they are following the bottom-up approach. Bottom-up approach means the government is just allocating a fund lump sum for all the states. Then it is asking the states to prepare their plans, discuss with the center, and accordingly they will get the funds. Now, in this process, the center is also making sure that the state should compete so that best utilization of funds is possible. So it is not like the earlier what we saw, that there was a scheme and according to some formula all the states were getting the funds and they were utilizing it on their own, and after misutilization of the fund, even if the center gives a bad report to them, so it is useless. They have already utilized your fund without any outcome, without any result. So now it is just the reverse process, right? So now you are aware about all the four inputs, the problems. I told you each and every aspect of the four problems. But you know, these days there are three words being used in agriculture. One is organic farming, second is natural farming, and the third is green farming or green agriculture. You know what is the difference in the three? First, let us talk about organic and natural. Are they same or there is some difference? Right? So, I will say both. As far as similarity is concerned, whether it is organic or natural, in both the cases, the condition is no use of chemical fertilizers or pesticides, right? So, in both the cases, no use of chemical fertilizers and pesticides. That is one thing. But what is the difference? Difference is very minor. In organic farming, we are not mentioning exactly how we are going to do that. That is very open-ended, right? But when we say natural farming means to go back to our older systems. So natural farming we are using in India only, right? So that is why there is a scheme also going on, and the name of this scheme is BPKP. For this scheme is BPKP. So what is the full form? Bharatiya Prakritik Krishi Paddhati Program. Bharatiya Prakritik Krishi Paddhati Program. So it means Krishi Paddhati means agricultural practices. Indian natural agricultural practices means the older systems, what were good things, like use of a process of biomass mulching, you understand? Mulching समझते हो आप लोग? What is mulching? मल्चिंग में क्या करते हैं जी, बायोमास और जी एग्रीकल्चरल वेस्ट उसको हम पूरा खेत में बिछा देते हैं, एंड व्हेन वी इरिगेट तो वो उसकी जो उसमें जो ऑर्गेनिक चीज़ें होती हैं दैट इज एब्जॉर्ब बाय द सॉइल, और उसके बाद में उसमें जोत देते हैं. आजकल फार्मर्स यू मस्ट क्या है, पराली क्या है. द ओल्डर सिस्टम वाज कि आफ्टर हार्वेस्टिंग the rest of the part of the plant वो हम पूरा खेत में ही वापस उसको, पहले उसको क्या करते, इरिगेट करते थे, फिर उसको कल्टीवेट करते थे, इन द प्रोसेस वो पूरा वापस खेत में चला जाता था. दैट वाज ऑर्गेनिक मटेरियल. देन वी वर एडिंग things like cow dung or other organic manures. तो that was, और उसके बाद फिर क्या था कि फॉर द सॉइल फर्टिलिटी, अभी तो किसान इतना जल्दी में होता, वो कुछ करता नहीं है, बट लाइक आफ्टर कल्टीवेशन फिर उसको क्या करते थे कि ओपन छोड़ देते थे 1-2 दिन, तो जिससे कि वो एयर का फ्लो होता था. तो दैट वाज रिक्वायर्ड फॉर हेल्दी बैक्टीरिया और जो भी बायोमास होता है, वहाँ पर माइक्रो ऑर्गेनिजम्स होते हैं, उनके रिप्रोडक्शन के लिए. और उसके फिर इसको क्या करते थे, क्लोज कर देते थे. दे यूज टू रिपीट दिस फॉर एटलीस्ट 2-3 टाइम्स बिफोर सोइंग ऑफ द सीड्स. तो ये सारा था. तो नाउ दिस इज समथिंग कॉस्टली, so we cannot do throughout the country. So now we have started in some states on experimental basis only. Let us see whether it is successful or not, because everything depends on farmers, whether they adopt it or. So that is one thing. दूसरा, जहां तक बात है ग्रीन की बात, ग्रीन एग्रीकल्चर. So when we talk about green agriculture, it is actually different from organic and natural. क्या difference है? In green agriculture, though we are using the term green, but in green we don't say no use, but it says minimum use. So it talks about minimum use. Minimum use of chemicals, whether it is pesticide or it is fertilizer. So if you read about green agriculture, so they will be talking about integrated pest management, integrated nutrient management, things like that. इसका मतलब कि they should be used in such a manner that the use of chemical can be minimized. Now the question is, which is better for India, right? So when we do all this, organic or natural, on smaller scales, it is acceptable, or I can say it is feasible. But if we go for organic in a big way, there are two problems. Number one, we are not prepared for that. Prepared in the sense that if you say that, okay, we should go for organic farming, obviously for that you need organic manures. आपको पता है इंडिया में the organic manures that we produce as of now, that is not sufficient for more than 5% of the total area. So those who talk about organic manure, very excited about this. So they should first study the availability of the organic manure in India, right? We can do that. Maybe 10-20% we can bring under organic. But another aspect of it is, when we switch from inorganic to organic, I am not saying it is not possible. It is quite possible, but when we shift from one system to the other, the scientific evidence about this is that it takes about 3 to 4 years for the soil to prepare itself. So at least for 3 years, when you suddenly stop using chemical fertilizers and you switch to organic, there will be sudden drop in productivity, and the soil will adjust for the organic manure. and then after 3 years only its productivity will be back to the normal. That is why also it can be done only in a gradual manner. अभी देखो, the best example to understand this is Sri Lanka. Whatever happened in Sri Lanka, it was because of some bad decisions by the president of Sri Lanka and the cabinet there. You know, they were already under pressure because the two main sources of revenue for Sri Lanka, one is tourism and another is tea. Now, tourism was already in bad shape because of Corona. And the government, I don't know how they did it, or they did not consult the experts. They suddenly said that we have less money to buy fertilizers because they were importing everything. So the cut was severe on chemical fertilizers. And they said that, okay, you switch to organic. And obviously, the outcome was sudden drop in productivity. That is why India sent a lot of rice to Sri Lanka. And people were on the roads. Because generally, देखो, what I believe, if decisions of the government are not affecting the common man, majority of them are not concerned. ठीक है, कौन इलेक्शन जीता, कौन एमसीडी में गया, कौन गुजरात जीता, कौन किसी को ज्यादा मतलब नहीं. इट इज जस्ट ठीक है, पास टाइम है, when we are free, we are discussing political issues. But if the decisions of the government, maybe center, state or local body, if they are affecting directly your life, then you are bound to react. And this is what happened in Sri Lanka. Already they were under pressure. Tourism is big business there, so they were facing the loss of income. And then added problem was a sudden drop in productivity and non-availability of food grain means prices were moving up. And then bad management. आपने एक बार कर लिया, whatever you said to India after the crisis, if your departments were alert about it, तो आप भारत से पहले ही हाथ जोड़ते तो भारत दे देता आपको चावल. हमारे पास तो भरा पड़ा है. We have 45-50 million tons of rice stored. आपका तो 1 million ton में ही काम हो जाएगा. आप तो पड़ोसी हो, हमारी मदद हो. But that is again another mismanagement. They thought कि we will handle. और उन्होंने भारत से क्यों नहीं मांगा? Because we have some geopolitical issues, especially the Tamil issue. So they are also trying to pressurize India on Tamil issue. So they were avoiding कि India से नहीं मांगेंगे, because then India will dictate its terms. तो वो उसको अवॉइड करने के चक्कर में इन्होंने क्या हुआ, क्राइसिस करा दिया. ज़्यादा कुछ नहीं है, बड़ा सिंपल स्टोरी है श्रीलंका की. This is what happened in Sri Lanka. So as far as India is concerned, rationally we have to answer that. First, I explained you the differences. Government is experimenting with natural farming. The project has already started last year, but the areas involved are very small. This is just, you can say, experimental basis. Organic, many states are promoting and they are doing as per the possibilities. But the green agriculture is the new concept being promoted by the government of India, because they know that switching to organic farming directly will not be feasible, and we have a big issue regarding food security. क्योंकि श्रीलंका को तो भारत मदद कर सकता है. We can support Sri Lanka, but if we have the shortage, nobody in the world has the capacity to support India. Forget about intention. Even if they have the intention, they don't have the capacity to support us. So So this was about this. Then we have couple of facts that I want to tell to you. Uh, you know, in which state, these are random questions, but maybe useful for prelims. In which state the coverage, irrigation coverage is maximum? बड़ा obvious answer है. Why are you hesitating? Number one is Punjab. कभी कभी what happens? Like I asked this question in the same fashion about pesticides. So you people started thinking कि इसमें भी कोई twist होगा अभी. So there is no twist. Punjab is number one, followed by Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, followed by Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, and Andhra Pradesh. Right? Andhra. So these are the four states in decreasing order. Then if the question is about irrigated area under different crops, right? It is not state wise now, it is crop wise. If it is crop wise, so in which case the irrigation is maximum? Just guess. Crop wise, not state wise, crop wise. I started with this explanation. So obviously it is wheat. भाई irrigated area जहाँ कहाँ होगा? रबी में होगा ना. You are confusing it with seed. So number one is wheat. Number two is sugarcane. Number three is rice. So these are the three major crops. But there are two very important numbers here, and you will need it not exactly for PT question, but maybe to explain something. You see, one is pulses. Pulses में हमारा irrigated area कितना है? Just 20%. Oil seeds में कितना है? How much in the oil seeds? 27%. और कॉटन में कितना है? कॉटन now these three numbers, what do you understand with this? Suppose you get a question, why the tendency of suicide is much higher in Maharashtra as compared to Bihar. Why the number of suicides per year much higher, that is in thousands per year, than in Bihar? Maharashtra is a rich state, developed state. Bihar is the state with minimum per capita income. So, yes, that is why you got the indication right. Cotton crops. You know, the irrigation, cotton, you see, cotton is a cash crop. It needs huge investment. Now with the introduction of BT cotton, it has become more sensitive. Now, the very important protection is irrigation. There are other possibilities also, but irrigation. Now, 34% irrigation, just imagine. Failure of monsoon, less irrigation means crop losses, and farmers, they are investing a lot of money. And now, if it happens couple of years क्या होगा? They will lose money. They are not in a position to repay. There is no way out. So they go for suicide. But how it is different from Bihar, and why, or rather Bihar, why it is different? Bihar is also facing a lot of natural calamities every year. Half of the Bihar, North Bihar is affected by flood. South Bihar is affected by drought. But still, farmers in Bihar are not doing it. Why? Because they are into conventional farming. There are hardly any borrowed money involved in their farming. Whatever money they use, that is of their own. And that is why even if there is a loss due to natural calamity, it is just a matter of a season. After that, they get next crop and they survive. And as the borrowed money is not involved, so they don't feel that type of pressure, right? So it is true for other states also. So what is the outcome of this discussion? What we can suggest, that if government is promoting cash crop in some regions, it is the responsibility of the government to ensure basic things like irrigation or crop insurance or other things, whatever is possible. If we can do that, then obviously these incidents can be reduced. Otherwise, political levels पे तो आप कुछ भी कहो, but these are the fundamental reasons, and we fail to address these problems, right? So I have discussed each and every aspect of it, but one thing I will discuss tomorrow, and that is effect of green revolution. That is a small discussion, and after that I'll start a new topic within agriculture only, and that is agricultural price policy, and which involves the concept of MSP, procurement, buffer stock, public distribution system, etc. So the whole thing I will discuss tomorrow. Thank you.